I'm Eric Parker this morning on CT23. What is happening in the skies over the United States, and how should our government and the military handle the situation? We're talking with Connecticut Congressman Jim Himes. We'll also talk about the mass shooting at Michigan State University and whether it will make any difference to his fellow congressmen when it comes to gun policies. We're also talking with a local businessman about why he's choosing to fully fund health insurance for all his employees. Plus, a Naugatuck police officer helps the people of his native country suffering after those devastating earthquakes in Turkey. It's all ahead this Sunday, February 19th. CT23 starts right now.
From Channel 3, CT23 with Eric Parker.
Good morning. I am Eric Parker. Over the past couple of weeks, we've been hearing a lot about these objects appearing in the skies over the United States. The U.S. military has been busy tracking and in multiple cases shooting down these unknown objects of all different sizes and shapes. Joining us now with insight into this situation is Congressman Jim Himes of Connecticut's 4th District. Congressman Himes, I think my Journalism 101 professor would probably say this isn't a good question, but I can't think of anything else. What the heck is going on?
Well, Eric, the very short answer to that question is that we saw a pretty remarkable event, which was a Chinese spy balloon drift into United States airspace. We all got to watch that up close and personal, shot down off the coast of South Carolina. It's now ours. We're exploiting it for intelligence value. I'm very happy about that. But here's the rub. What happened next was we actually started looking for these things. You know, we have very powerful radar and sensors and all sorts of other stuff that is looking not for balloons. They're looking for fast moving small things like missiles and planes maybe that aren't responding to, to attempts to communicate. And so all of a sudden we changed all of our radar and sensors to try to find these things. And guess what? We're finding them. And when I say them, we're not finding, and I should really wait until we actually get to the wreckage, but we're not finding Russian or Chinese or North Korean spy balloons or weapon systems. We're finding a lot of the garbage that floats around in our atmosphere, weather balloons, Wi-Fi balloons, you name it. So that's what's going on. And my bottom line message is not really a cause for alarm.
So should we be separating these into two categories, that first Chinese thing that we all tracked so closely and that was shot down, and then everything else we found after? Is that kind of how you're looking at it?
That's exactly right. That's exactly the right way to think about it. And, we know from a year ago, I sit on the Intelligence Committee. We had a big hearing on what we're supposed to call unidentified aerial phenomenon, UAPs. Most people think of them as UFOs. We did a big hearing. The Navy and others are studying all of these incidents where pilots and others see a phenomenon out there. And it turns out, no surprise, that almost everything, and I say almost everything because there's one or two, I guess, that they can't fully explain. It turns out that almost everything is people looking at old weather balloons, looking at blimps, looking at, aircraft from weird angles. And so we just know that there's a lot of stuff up there. And I think now that what we're doing is looking for it, guess what? We're finding it.
So let's go back then to this Chinese that we believe was a spy balloon. You mentioned being on the Intelligence Committee. Should this be concerning? I know this past week, writing in the New York Post, Gordon Chang, an author who writes about China, said he believed it was a prelude to an attack. Do you think that that's possible? What are we learning from what we recovered?
Well, I didn't see that reporting, but it's just flat out wrong. It was not a prelude to an attack. First of all, the probability that China is going to attack the continental United States is pretty close to zero. Secondly, in the event that it did happen, it would not happen because they sent something highly visible and trackable for days over our airspace. So I'm sorry there's that kind of irresponsible reporting out there. What this is part of a major effort that pretty much every country on the planet makes. We do it against the Russians and the Chinese and the North Koreans and the Iranians. They do it against us, which is to collect intelligence, right? Now, so nobody is surprised that the Chinese are trying to collect intelligence on our military. What is surprising is the brazenness of allowing, and I am using the word allowing because we don't know that this was deliberate. It's quite possible that this balloon was not intended to cross the continental United States, that it wasn't approved at the highest levels. But the point is, it's very brazen, and it was obviously a huge embarrassment for the Chinese, but not a surprise.
And what we've recovered, is that going to be valuable? We've all seen the pictures of the sailor on a ship with the web netting over pieces that have been recovered. Do you think there will be valuable stuff that we can understand about what they were doing from what was recovered after the shootdown?
I do think so. I mean, again, intelligence services around the world never want their stuff, their methods, their sources captured by their adversaries. And now we own the thing. And it's not just the fact that we can look at the electronics, who made it, how it was made, what its capabilities are. That's all stuff we'll be learning and are learning right now. We also got to watch its characteristics, right? We can see how it flies, how it's maneuverable, thought about how you can take them down. That's always immensely, immensely valuable stuff for us to know, because we do know that the Chinese are experimenting with other balloons, and who knows whether this is going to be a big part of their sort of military effort. But it's good to know what we know now, which is how these things behave and what their capabilities are.
Now, on the other three items that were shot down, obviously, you know, these are balloons, maybe weather balloons, maybe something else. They were shot down with really expensive big missiles. Is there a chance we're going to find anything, or were they just blown to smithereens?
We will find wreckage of all of these things. They're in remote locations in the northern Yukon, I guess off the coast of Alaska. I mean, these are not easy to get to places, and certainly not easy to get stuff out of. But yeah, I'm pretty confident we will recover them, and I'm pretty confident that we will discover that they are no threats and probably nothing related to, you know, anybody's attempt to spy or get an advantage on us. And look, you point out exactly the right point, which is that we're a little sensitive now to balloons, but you know, an operation to send fighters up to bring something down is a major expense, and actually a little risky, right? When fighter jets fly around, you know, there's always risk to the pilot. So we're going to need to find a better way of dealing with airborne junk than taking out, you know, military missions to take them down.
I want to move on to another topic, but just real quick, they addressed it from the White House, so there's no chance these things are alien UFOs, right? Have you seen any reporting that might make you think it's anything else?
Not this stuff. Again, I'm not going to entirely dash the hopes of all those folks who are devoted to UFOs out there by saying that we have definitive proof that there aren't extraterrestrials. I'm just going to say I'm confident that that's not what we've seen this last 10 days.
I want to shift gears in a big way. I know your district is so sensitive, obviously, to these mass shootings, and you are on Capitol Hill as well. We saw another one at Michigan State University over this past week, and some of the early reports had people who had been younger students in other mass shootings who are now hiding on campus. As you see this, is there any hope that this will sway people who maybe are resisting efforts to have more gun safety measures out there for people like you who support this?
Eric, I wish I could answer that question with a yes. You know, after Sandy Hook, when we lost, you know, more than 20 young children and teachers, I thought this is going to be enough for this country, finally, consistent with our Second Amendment rights, to do all the things we know we need to do to reduce the mayhem, the violence that infects no other country. But Sandy Hook didn't do it. Parkland didn't do it. I could just go on and on all day. What I do see, and this is a cause for hope, is that over time in the Congress, we can incrementally make progress. We passed the Bipartisan Community Safeties Act in the last Congress, which had funds for mental health, which are important. But look, at some point, we're just going to need to decide that the lives of our young people are too valuable to have more conversations over the package of things that we know solve this, right? Universal background check, limiting the kinds of weapons that people can get their hands on, safe storage, the package of Second Amendment compliant things that would, if we could finally get it over the line, it would save so many lives. Is there any hope that this is that moment, or you just say it's just like all these others and it starts to blend in? Yeah, it's really hard for me to talk about, Eric, because, you know, I'm sitting here 25 miles from the Sandy Hook Elementary School. And, you know, if that didn't do it for Americans, if it's okay not to make major change after you've lost, you know, 24 infants, babies in a elementary school, I don't know what it takes. And again, the list goes on and on. Parkland, Colorado, Aurora. It's hard, but that each and every one of these things, if we're going to be, if we're going to honor the people that we've lost, we're not going to let our discouragement stop us from working everything we can to try to save people's lives. All right, Congressman Jim Himes from the 4th District, thank you for being with us here on CT23. Thank you. Coming up later in our Sunday Spotlight, a local police officer who's gathering goods and raising money for Turkey following the deadly earthquakes. He lived there as a child. And up next, a local business owner offering a big perk to his employees. He's completely funding their health insurance. He explains why it's good for his employees and good for business when we come back.